Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar on optimizing your audit and QA team to support claims and underwriting KPIs. I'm your host, Christina Guzman. Along with me today is Garnett Glover, our Senior VP of Sales. A little bit about me: I spent over 20 plus years in the insurance industry and the last 10 years in the QA space, both on the insurance side and now on the insurtech provider side, having joined Athenium Analytics about 3 years ago. I'm happy to be here today to share some of that knowledge with you, as is Garnett, and I'll let Garnett introduce himself and give us a little background on Athenium Analytics. Garnett?
Hello, everyone. My name is Garnett Glover, Senior VP of Sales with Athenium Analytics. I have 30 years experience in the industry. I worked for Safeco Insurance for 20 years, managed claims department, audit, and operations. Also did some consulting. And I see some familiar faces and companies. So I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today. So some background on Athenium Analytics. Again, we provide QA solutions, performance risk management software that really empowers users to collaborate, evaluate, and improve individual and company KPI performance. And so what does this mean for you? Well, we're really providing solutions to, one, make your life easier. We're really trying to automate manual processes or tasks so your team can be more productive. And you can eliminate the need for IT support. You know, our solutions increase data integrity so you can really trust your QA results. And, you know, we have the ability to ingest claims and underwriting data into the solution to, again, eliminate a lot of manual input. Our solutions also enhance your ability to collect robust, rich QA data that you can then view, visualize in analytics reporting. And we're really trying to leverage all the data that insurance companies have using analytics, predictive analytics, AI, natural language processing to quickly identify improvement opportunities. Now Christina is going to introduce the session goals.
All right, thanks, Garnett. All right, so one quick note before we start talking about how to optimize your audit team. Just one quick housekeeping note. There is a submit questions. You can submit questions at any time using the webinar panel questions box. And at the end of the session, we'll answer a few of those as time permits. And those that we don't get to, we can email responses directly after the session. So feel free to ask away any questions you might have during the session. So the session goals, as listed there on the screen, we're going to go over how to optimize your QA goals to support claims and underwriting KPIs. And by doing so, hopefully improve team communication and provide you some team takeaways to be able to implement and support your program toward a best-in-class program. So let's go ahead and get started. So we all know that a KPI, or an insurance key performance indicator, is a measurement that an insurance company uses to monitor its performance and efficiency. And those metrics can help a company identify areas of operational success and areas that require more attention to make them successful. These KPIs are fundamental in creating a clear goal for company direction and in creating a culture of improvement throughout the company. But the KPIs are only useful if you can track and interpret the data to support them and create actionable insights from them. They should also positively impact the workplace by encouraging and leading improvement that ultimately benefits the entire company. An effective and successful QA department, whether it's a young program or those that are developing into a best-in-class status, provides support for successful KPI goals by tracking performance data on that process improvement and reporting results on what the business needs to be successful. So our goal today is to review how the quality audit process can best support those KPIs through the company and through the departments that you support. So let's jump right into our points today. Today we'll cover 4 points that'll help you optimize your QA team and to help me illustrate those, meet Jill. She's pictured there by Cocheco Insurance sign. Jill's just been hired by Cocheco Insurance as the new Audit and Quality Assurance Chief. She's been hired to revamp the quality process for both claims and underwriting at Cocheco. And if you're wondering, that picture on the right side is our New Hampshire office alongside the Cocheco River in Dover. And that's the example of our mid-market insurer. So we'll revisit Jill at a couple of points in our session today to check on how she fares with the points that we cover. So let's jump right into the first point. And that is knowing your KPIs and baselines. So you want to take inventory on the existing departments and utilize industry and company best practices together. You'll want to know what is the current structure of the company that you support and what are the current KPIs, whether they're internal to the company, internal to QA, or external departments. If the company KPI, you'll want to take that into perspective with how the auditing results may support them and how QA can help positively impact those KPIs. How to do that is to make sure that the questionnaires are designed to give you insight into what behaviors and processes drive those KPIs. Understand those existing goals and the KPIs and the baseline. Are there established best practices and processes in place? And do they support the existing KPIs? Have these been tested, retested, or validated, or do they need development? Consider a baseline review for those best practices that are in place so you can determine which best practices work and which best practices don't. Once you determine your baseline, you can then consider additional focus questions on those areas that might require some assistance. You'll want to establish which KPIs are most supportable by QA and which are the top priority for the business. Understand those responsible parties and what their top priorities are. Some examples of this might be in claims, might be proper claims cost or maintaining efficient legal fees, thereby lowering leakage. Some examples in underwriting might be proper underwriting quotes or bind rate and cycle time. Premium leakage and incorrect application of endorsements are also huge in underwriting, but not a lot of companies track premium leakage. But something as simple as tracking incorrectly applied discounts can provide some very valuable insight in this space. You'll also want to be wary of too many goals or priorities, which might spread your department or the functions too thin. Having too many priorities can hinder them. It'd be difficult for people to focus on too many opportunities and stay motivated. Rather, you'll want to focus on maybe 3 to 5 goals. You'll also want to check if there's any quick wins that are available to your department. Quick wins meaning a small effort improvement that offer large gains and returns. For example, is there any process that can be automated or completed administratively that may have not been noticed by now? A great example of this is just automating tasks. Are there similar trends outside of the existed documented process that can be improved with automation? An example for both claims and underwriting, compliance letters. Compliance letters need immediate and time-driven delivery, and an immediate win or a quick win could be comprised of something as simple as automating a policy or claim notice upon a certain notation by an underwriter or claims adjuster. For example, someone gets a new car, or someone notices there's a new driver in the household. You'll also want to set expectations and next steps for your QA department. Those internal QA goals should be centered around supporting improvement processes and reporting, because it's important to understand that it's the business that drives what QA is measuring. There could be a huge disconnect if QA tries to tell the business what to do. So understand that QA needs to report and produce results on what the business needs to be successful and supportive of those business goals. So let's check in on Jill and see what this means for Jill's team at Cocheco. Jill's first order of business is to determine the current structure of the company and how her QA department might support and add value to the KPIs that support each department. Jill takes inventory of the existing departments to find existing best practices and guidelines for each area, and if there are any processes in place that she should reference in structuring the new QA department. She finds that QA will report to the executive team and report upon 3 offices of claim and underwriting departments across the country. And she focuses on how and where the QA department can support their goal and development and the why behind their goals. What is the measurement that is needed and why is it important? Why is it an opportunity for improvement? She researches past performance and finds that the biggest opportunities at Cocheco center around payment ratios and leakage in property claims, and for underwriting centering on accuracy and coverage and endorsements, and overall at Cocheco for compliance and training purposes. So how can Jill and the QA department help positively impact these KPIs? She reviews the audit process in comparison to the KPIs and the goals of each department. Now, she could commit to a focused audit on each area, but in this case, she looks at the questionnaires, the structure of those questions in the questionnaires, and the root causes associated to the questions. So root causes become important when determining the why behind a certain trend and possible reasons why a negative answer might be warranted. So Jill does find questions and some that contain root causes. However, she finds that some questions don't contain root causes at all. And in short, not enough supporting root causes to pinpoint the why of a negative answer. So in particular, the claims questionnaire and the leakage questions pertaining to property leakage contain no root causes, while the underwriting questionnaire contained two very generalized process root causes regarding proper endorsements. She reviews these and decides a revamp of the root causes on those questions are the high yield opportunities she can focus on. She reviews these and decides that the revamp of the root causes are connected to the high priority KPIs, and that a QA department can support those and focus on those for help for improvement processes. She now begins the process of reaching out to those areas and those leaders to collaborate and determine the proper root causes that may help produce the insights needed to create a roadmap for reaching those goals. So now that Jill's on her way to support KPI goals and QA partnerships, let's move on to the next point. And what about those partnerships? Developing and nurturing partnerships is a key point. It's important to remember that QA departments are fact gatherers. QA department goals should support outside department goals by gathering data and facts and leveraging those into process improvement recommendations. The QA department should determine which goals it should focus on and determine which goals can be supported. Most goals will be best supported outside of the QA department, thus necessitating those partnerships with those outside departments to be successful and to be effective. So you'll want to take inventory of those current relationships and the handoffs among the teams. Who is most interested in the goal and the improvement process for the goal? Who can gain the most value in coordinating with QA for data, outcomes, and solutions? Most importantly, you'll want to establish buy-in with key stakeholders and include them at every juncture. Senior leadership with senior executives and their buy-in is probably the single most critical piece for success of a QA department. You can have the best QA program with great outputs, but if senior leadership does not make QA a priority, that QA department is going to struggle. You'll also want to make sure and foster enterprise partnerships across the business with team leaders, frontline workers, IT department, and even vendors. You want to organize teams to address problem areas and determine the focus for the goals, ensuring the data points are supporting the improvement of the challenged areas and using that information to drive toward the goal. Formulate steps to support those. For example, will each department require separate evaluations to be successful, whether it's by line of business or territory or office? You want to organize the teams to collaborate on the improvement process and meet regularly to discuss the data points and reports that support them. Okay, now let's check back with Jill on her progress at Cocheco. So Jill knows it's important to include the business when setting top priorities to ensure what the business is trying to achieve and how it should be measured through the QA program. The QA team functions as an independent fact-gathering resource, and there should be a partnership between QA and the rest of the business to make everyone more successful. So Jill is fostering these relationships with leaders at Cocheco on a consistent basis. Senior leadership buy-in is the single most critical piece for ensuring that effective QA department. Therefore, that established buy-in with those key stakeholders is very important. And the process for improving the questionnaire and the root causes she's focusing on, the updated reporting metrics and additional supportive measures that the business needs for success. Jill also visits frontline employees to try and determine the hurdles and roadblocks they face every day, and she reviews training materials of the processes and solicits ideas for process improvements with training involvement. She's cultivating these relationships with each of these teams so that they will help uncover and address problems and opportunities that will help optimize workflows and drive change for improvement. Jill's QA team can also help determine which opportunities to focus on moving forward. And she creates regular meetings with the departments to determine the proper root causes to list in the key questions. That will promote the buy-in and produce better insights and support the KPIs for the business. Now let's continue to principle number 3, which is optimizing your performance and reporting. So establishing audits with verifiable data for creating metrics and reports. You should establish what's being measured and why. Is the data produced clear, concise, and correct? Creating and fostering ongoing communication and dissemination of these results, and also with continued calibration. You'll want to make sure that you're disseminating the results at the right frequency and at the level of detail as expected by leadership. While individual contributor feedback is important to be delivered timely, high-level QA data can take a while to be relevant. So keep that in mind amid changes to the process. Also keep in mind that frequent changes over short periods of time can cause data to seem unreliable. So keep those to a minimum if possible. Ensure delivery of expected reporting measurements, whether that be monthly, weekly, quarterly, or by office, by manager, or handler, or underwriter. You'll want to talk to your partners in leadership to determine the preferred information to report, the preferred frequency, and their expectations, and the expectations by the business for the data analysis. Also important is who should or should not have access to that data. To ensure accurate and consistent data, find and utilize tools that optimize the QA department performance and efficiency. It should yield reliable results to build trust in the data. Your audit insights, again, must be clear, they must be concise, and they must be correct. Once you have the right tool in place, you'll need to confirm that the metrics are actionable in their current state and communicate the value of each metric with supporting data. Report on the root causes for the biggest opportunities, supporting the KPI goals, and then develop improvement suggestions with help from each team. Remember to integrate and complete calibrations to monitor for consistency. If there is no calibration on a metric, then you will spend more time defending the metric rather than improving it. Everyone has to agree on what success looks like, so it's clear when improvement is needed. Now back to Jill, and let's see how she handles performance and reporting for Cocheco. Having received the new data, Jill ensures she has the proper tools in place to support changes to the quality process. She's calibrated the reviews and ensures the integrity of future results by leveraging TeamThink, the industry's leading audit tool that Cocheco's senior leadership already know and trust. Thanks to the alliances she's built with senior leaders, Jill gains the support for ongoing audit improvements and reinforces the high priority issues identified. Jill ensures that the proper reports are given to the proper channels so they can collaborate on next steps for their team. And she participates in suggested process improvements and includes benchmarks to track progress towards those goals. Jill revisits with senior leaders across the business and provides performance reports with the latest business trends. She also tailors those results to each department and provides recommendations on how to optimize processes and training opportunities moving forward. Jill facilitates feedback from these departments to encourage the change management and support them with QA data, and consistently provides updates to stakeholders every month. Now that Jill is making progress towards her QA revamp, let's visit principle number 4, which is feedback and refinement. A good rule of thumb for feedback and refinement: over communication is key, and always question if there's a better way. Solicit feedback at every level through the alliances with senior executives, department leaders, process managers, and frontline staff. Use the feedback to evaluate new improvement opportunities that will better support broader business goals. Once the existing reporting mechanisms are understood, question them. Why is that measurement needed? Who benefits from it? How is the data being utilized now? Do they still need it? Is there a better way to reach that measurement? Is the current data being used effectively, and are the reports being used or disregarded, and why? Then be open and communicate your findings as you track them over time. Explain how and why changes may be beneficial for the business, but be careful not to implement too many changes too quickly. Be thoughtful with changes by leveraging internal alliances to help implement those improvements. Communicate the story of why, and then communicate it again. Include as many partnerships as possible, internal and external, and highlight how those teams are adding and contributing to the KPI goals of the organization. It also helps to link industry trends to internal audit insights, showing how macro trends may influence internal processes over time. But no matter how much planning occurs, you should always expect constructive feedback. And leveraging that feedback will enable your team to continue refining the program over time. Now let's check back with Jill one last time to see how she brings Cochico to a full QA circle. So you'll recall Jill began with identifying the baselines, the KPIs, and top opportunities, and highlighted the need to refine root causes for property claims leakage and improve the accuracy of endorsement applications and underwriting. With a solid handle on past insights and new internal alliances in place, Jill can leverage deep business insights to help drive continuous improvement across the business, and thereby helping them achieve their goal of 5% improvement, both in endorsement accuracy and underwriting and property claims leakage. Jill is building bridges between departments by utilizing consistent and accurate data and reports for further improvement of the audit process and the QA department. Even better, she's continuing to collect and synthesize the latest insights to make incremental changes over time. Thanks to her work, she's well on her way to ensuring the new QA process can support claims and underwriting KPIs and pivot as the needs change. So now that Jill's taken her QA team full circle, let's talk about some takeaways from today's session. Those are the 4 key principles. Let's summarize those for your team. So how can QA overall optimize its impact of the KPIs? Make sure the questionnaires are designed to give insights on what behaviors and processes drive those KPIs. Focus on the highest priority opportunities. A successful quality department works alongside claims and underwriting to support the KPIs and goals, and report on ongoing results and maintain strong alliances to work through any inevitable hiccups that come along the way. Your audit platform is also essential for long-term success, and QA software should do more than just present numbers, but also the why behind the numbers. This helps create context for the data and reinforce why certain metrics are important. Effective QA programs test and retest the business data to track improvements. And while this takes time, it also positions the business for long-term success. Your optimized QA department must have the right tool in place to not only conduct audits, but also deliver clear and consistent insights tied to individual and team performance. So speaking of the right tool, Garnett will be covering the Athenium solutions built to optimize your claims and underwriting quality. Garnett, over to you.
Thank you, Christina. So TeamThink's our leading QA solution. And I just want to provide a little background on TeamThink. TeamThink actually was originally developed for educators 20 years ago. And we developed the software to capture and identify training opportunity gaps in education, leverage the results data to identify trends, and then to implement focused training to improve individual performance. We were approached by a leading insurance consulting firm to enhance the software for the insurance industry and QA process. And over the last 20 years, Athenium's co-developed the product with some of the leading insurance carriers to really transform the QA space. We've added many optional expansion modules so you can add additional functionality as your QA process and goals change over the year. You know, my goal is to get you into TeamThink at a price point where you can get a return on investment. And many of our customers will get into TeamThink, and again, as they use TeamThink, their actual QA process starts to mature, and then they can add additional functionality. And how can they do that in TeamThink? Well, TeamThink's a powerful SaaS enterprise QA solution that has a rules engine built into it. And that rules engine has thousands of different configuration options that our professional solution engineers can deploy based on your business needs. So we have the ability to do different configurations and customize the software to meet your current needs and future QA needs. And that's why many of our customers have been with us for 15 plus years, because as their QA process matures and they want to add additional functionality, the TeamThink rules engine has the ability to do that. TeamThink's an end-to-end solution. So if you kind of think about your QA process, we can ingest claims and policy information. We can set up an automated data feed where you can be bringing in those files at any cadence. We have the ability to export data, the results data back to you nightly or whatever that cadence is. You have the ability to do sophisticated file selections in TeamThink. And think about how that will reduce the manual time you may be doing with your current QA process. We have the ability to build questionnaires in TeamThink. So after the initial implementation, TeamThink's built to be self-administrated. So you have the ability to change and edit questionnaires. You can build baseline questionnaires, questionnaires by line of business, focus questionnaires. We have the ability in TeamThink to provide you many different reporting options. We can provide direct feedback, indirect feedback. We can aggregate the data. You have the ability to do calibration or blind reviews in TeamThink and report out on those blind reviews. And we also have productivity reports. You also have the ability to have a results dashboard where you can visualize all the results data at any level of the hierarchy. And the reportlets in the dashboard are dynamic. So you can look at property at the very highest level. You can look at it by division, office, unit manager, supervisor, or handler. Over the last years, many of our customers are moving away from reporting and really focusing on using the different dashboards that we can build in TeamThink. And again, I just want to emphasize that the system is self-administrated. So once the implementation is done, you will do the administration of creating the audits, adding users, editing questionnaires. And this really eliminates the need for you to use your internal IT resources. And we all know in today's world in insurance, getting IT resources is very difficult. And so we built TeamThink where there's little or no need for internal IT resources. Let's talk about claim signal platform. So what would it mean to your organization if you could increase your supervisors and unit managers' productivity by 5%, 10%? What would be the impact if you could reduce physical damage, casualty, property leakage by 1% or 2% for your organization? Claim Signal product is a robust supervisory diary solution leveraging artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and predictive analytics modeling. It was co-developed by Athenium Analytics and Aon. The Claim Signal platform model ingests structured and unstructured data. So we typically will take 5 years of historical loss runs, structured data, and we will also ingest unstructured data or the claim notes that you have in your claim system. The CSP platform UI automatically generates alerts based on critical adjuster tasks that impact key KPIs and provides analytics to see trends at any level of the organization level. And we write business rules with these alerts, and each alert has different action alerts that are associated with it to trigger the alert if that task hasn't been done. So think about what it would mean to your supervisors from a diary standpoint. I remember when I was managing claims and having to do diary, and it's very painful. But with CSP, you can very quickly see what tasks have not been done or have been done in the CSP claims timeline. You can address those issues and notify the adjuster on what needs to be done. And in the analytics dashboard, you actually have the ability then to track what alerts have been completed, what alerts have not been completed. You can look at that at any level of the organization. You can see systemic trends across the organization, across the property lines, physical damage, or casualty lines. So what does this really mean for QA and a claims organization? You have the ability to really identify claims that are going sideways very early using CSP. We've also created some predictive modeling to better identify challenging claims. And with some of the customers that we have, we've created predictive analytics around subrogation, because once they started using Claim Signal platform, they noticed a lot of trends in their subrogation and in their salvage. We've also created some predictive analytics on predicting based on alerts completed and not completed if there is a possibility of attorney involvement. You really can proactively manage diary around priority cases or alerts using CSP. And it really does give you the ability to really measure claims performance at the handler level and to implement training programs based on alerts that are being triggered. And at the organization level, through the analytics, you have the ability to really track trends across the entire organization. Next, I want to talk about gauge quality in the future. We believe gauge quality is really the future for QA solutions. Gauge quality is an agile and lean QA solution for claims and underwriting, really based on the 20 years experience delivering TeamThink to 60+ customers. Now, gauge quality has a modern UI, but it's also built on a tech stack that allows you to do front-end system configurations without internal IT or an Athenium engineer. Now think about how I talked about team think. Highly configurable, easy to customize, but an Athenium engineer needs to do those configurations and those customizations. We think the future is to provide a QA system that's robust, that has many different configuration options, where you can do the configuration and build the site based on your needs. So you have the ability to engage quality to really set up the system, administration, and to create workflows. You have the ability to ingest QA files and to run file selection. So we built these file selection templates in Gauge Quality where you can run the file selections. You can create and track audits. You can set permissions for any QA role that you want to create in Gauge Quality. And so there's a lot of different permissions rules that are set in Gauge Quality for access control. And then there's an analytics dashboard to see the results across any level of the organization. We recently entered into an agreement with Tableau, a business intelligence company, to enhance the results data analytics dashboard. So what does this mean for you in the insurance market? What it means is that your year one investment in the implementation duration is significantly reduced compared to the TeamThink product. And we will continue to add Gauge Quality functionality and features in 6-week sprints over the next 2 years. Athenium will go to market in May with Gauge Quality, and you should look for any upcoming Gauge Quality product launch webinar that will be in late April or early May. We will also be doing a Gauge Quality product launch at the upcoming RIMS conference in San Francisco. So that kind of gives you an overview of TeamThink, Claim Signal Platform, in the future, Gauge Quality.
Thanks, Garnett. Appreciate the insight into all of our new processes and platforms. And now we've come to the question and answer session of our session today. If you have not submitted questions, please feel free to do so now using the questions box in the webinar control panel. And Matt, person behind the scenes, do we have a few questions that we can go through now?
Yeah, hey guys, got a few here queued up for you. So the first one is, how do you win over QA skeptics who may be resistant to change?
Oh, that's a good question. So there's lots of ways to answer that question, but I will tell you that time and consistency is the key for winning over skeptics of QA improvements. So trying to reframe QA as an improvement opportunity rather than an us versus them is going to be the best way to counter any of those skeptics who are resistant to change. The growth and the success of the business is what you should rely on for those persons who are resistant to a QA process improvement. You want to make sure that they understand that the information and the data that's being produced out of QA is there for improvement process. It's not there as a skeptic to them or of their processes. It's meant to improve those processes. So when you talk to those skeptics, or when you're trying to get or win some buy-in for your QA department, you'll want to remember to rely on the consistent data and make sure that you're consistent with the information that you provide to them reporting-wise, and make sure that you have a supportive tool to produce those reports so that you can be consistent in those reports, provide that data that they need to help them get comfortable with the improvement processes that might be supporting the business at that point. once you're able to communicate the story behind where the improvement processes are coming from, hopefully you'll be able to win over those skeptics and help them through the change process at that point.
Yeah, Christina, this is Garnet. I'd like to echo that with some of the leading insurance carriers that we worked with, 10 years ago, Audit was really looking at process. What are these different tasks that are being done? You would provide a quality score, you would give it back, people would argue about it, you would go on to the next audit. And what we've seen is that transformation of QA where the carriers that have very successful QA programs are tying them to KPI and the ability to identify improvement areas, implement training plans, and then they go back and see if those training plans are effective and if they're seeing improvement, and really tying QA as a tool to meet the KPI goals of the claims department. And there's many carriers that are doing that now. We have some carriers that they're doing something called observations and team think, where they sit down and they watch the adjuster doing the job, and then they capture those observations across all their handlers to, again, identify training opportunities and really focus on fixing 2 or 3 things, handling claims or underwriting risk and understanding risk to really impact KPIs.
Right, I agree with you, Garnett. That's absolutely the way that the insurance industry is headed.
All right, we got another question here. It's kind of nuts and bolts related. So how often should we revise our questionnaires?
Well, that's a good question. So what you'll want to do is make sure that the changes in questionnaires aren't too often. As I mentioned previously, too frequent of change in a questionnaire often produces results that are inconsistent or that can appear inconsistent. You end up comparing apples to oranges if you're changing questionnaires too often. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you keep track over time of the questionnaire that you do have and identify those areas that are most effective for change, and then tweak just a few areas at a time and over time to make sure that you're not changing those questionnaires too frequently. I don't know that there's a magic answer to that question to say, oh, you should only change it once a year, or you should only change it once every 5 years. It is really going to be dependent upon the business and what their needs are. Because again, you want to mirror what the business's needs are and make sure that your questionnaire can support those. So if you're on regular cadence meetings with the businesses, with the different departments in the business, and their focus seems to be changing, then at that point you'll also want to start looking through your questionnaires and check to make sure that the focus of the questionnaires mirrors that with what the business wants to focus on as well.
Okay, great. And we got a couple questions about copies of the presentation or the slides. So just let everyone know how we'll handle that.
Sure. Yeah, so after today's session, look for a follow-up email with links to today's session, to the live webinar, and also to the slides in case you want to review them further. Also, past today's webinar, if you have questions regarding any of the platforms that Garnett discussed or any of the information that I discussed, if you just want to question or have a dialogue about it, feel free to reach out to us by email. Our emails are listed there on screen for you, and we'll be happy to respond.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, we got a couple last minute ones here, but I think we're at about time. So let's wrap it up and we can address folks individually afterwards.
Okay. Well, that'll work. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Garnett, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you found the information we shared helpful in optimizing your QA department and helping you to support the business goals. And again, look for that follow-up email if you want to revisit the session. If you have any other questions not answered in today's session, feel free to reach out to us, myself or Garnett. Thanks again, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. Thanks, everybody.